Hi, I'm Dr. James Dottin, Professor of Business at Middlesex Community College at the Lowell City Campus in Lowell, Massachusetts. Today we will have the great opportunity to view student scholars' research work. Why don't we take this time to sit back and relax and see what they have presented from a term of research that they have gathered. Thank you.
My name is Marshall Pelletier. I did my presentation on internet news, pros and cons of it. Why did I pick this topic? How people have received news has changed since the invention of the internet. People now have the ability to get all their news instantly at the click of a mouse on your computer or by opening an application on their smartphone. Though instant access and more news sources make it easy to get information you want quick and easily, there are also a lot of unreliable sources of news on the web. In my research paper, I looked for the negatives and positives of how the internet affected news. All right. People all over the world have been getting current information in the form of news since early civilizations. It is human nature to want to know what is going on around in the world. The invention of a written language made it so news stories could not only be more easily spread, but it also could be stored for future generations. This was further improved with the invention of the printing press around 1450. Before newspapers were invented, people would rely on stories that would be retold from person to person. These days, people can receive their news simultaneously via the internet. With either a mouse click or a few keystrokes, a person with an internet connection can have immediate access to a range of news sources that up until recently were inconceivable. Although the internet has made access to news more convenient, it also makes it easier for news to be falsified. For a news story to be relevant, it is useful for the audience. It must have certain characteristics. Part of the problem with stories told by word of mouth is that over time, important parts of the story can change. When trying to decide on whether a news source is good or not, the reader must ask themselves these questions. These questions should include, are the opinions unbiased? How is the news received, or how is it being presented? A reader needs to make sure that the author is portraying news events with accurate facts and information. One does not want a news story that is full of false information and opinions of others. They want to know what happened and the details that are involved in the story. It has been found that while a majority preferred news that is claimed to have no viewpoint, almost a quarter of respondents long for news that align with their point of view. For part of the population, seeing news stories that are pleasing to them is what they want to see every night, not stories that make them upset. But most people want news that they can trust to be always accurate, and not stories that they have to be dissect and find out themselves what the truth of the matter really is. There should be consistency in news where important stories are follow-up, and the facts of each story should be the same. On this slide I put a few questions you might want to ask when you're reading any internet source. Is it a reputable source? You want that to be yes. Is it an opinion or fact? You want it to be fact. Is it a source? Is the source being biased? You want that to be no. In January 2013, a survey from the Media Public Opinion Research Group showed how people get their news. About 30% of Americans specifically got their news from cable news, and about 30% from network television, and about 14% of Americans got their news from internet sources. The NPO also found in a different study that television is most popular as the main source of news by respondents identifying high school as their highest level of education, and that people with higher levels of education, such as a bachelor's or master's degree, are likely to rely on the internet as their everyday news. This shows that the most part of people who have higher education level are more likely to investigate other types of news that aren't what is being reported on news channels. They may have to agree that the events being reported on regularly might have just general curiosity of other news stories. It is not a surprise that 65% of people between the ages of 18 to 29 rely on the internet for their day-to-day news reports. It is easy to see why people rely on the internet for their main news source. For one thing, it's free. As long as you have a computer or other electronic devices connected to the internet, you can instantly be connected to thousands of different news sources. And it's now easier than ever to find the most up-to-date news on a wide range of specific topics. One can easily access more diverse stories than that on their favorite television news stations and gain more extensive knowledge on what is going on in the world. New advances in technology have made it even easier for people to get their news with the invention of continuous improvements of smartphones. Newspapers were a favorite source of news because of how easy it is to carry around and read wherever you go. However, now this can be done with one's cell phone. Most television news companies now have corresponding news websites and smartphone applications to allow instant access to the day's top stories. Examples of such companies: CNN, BBC News, and Fox News. This type of technology even makes it so that people can listen to the radio for news stories from their smartphone with internet radio capabilities. Some television news companies also send out text message alerts about important headlines so these can be top stories, weather alerts even more conveniently, and school cancellations. Another key aspect to having the internet as a source of news is that you can see past articles. Most news sites have their previous top stories saved and archived separately from the headlines that you can go back and read. This provides us a fantastic source of information and also the ability to not only read the current news events but study the past ones as well. This can even help the reader connect different events and provide further knowledge on any given topic. Being able to see how trends repeat themselves in the news every day helps readers draw their own conclusions about events. This gives you an example of, I don't know if anybody remembers seeing these in your libraries, which was on microfilm, all the newspapers. Unfortunately, there are aspects of the internet that are problematic. Not all of the news portrayed on the internet is reliable. Any person can go on the internet and make claims that are not true, but it is up to the reader to decide if the source of information is legitimate or not. A great example of this is Wikipedia. The great part of this website is that it's a diverse database that anyone can contribute to. This, however, is the main problem concerning the site. People can edit entries and add more details and more information about any topic, which helps others learn more about it as well. But the edited information isn't always true. This leads to confusion about what actually occurred and why it is not recommended to use as a source when researching a topic. It loses a credibility as a factual information because so many people have access to changing information. Another example of this is how a person's personal blog could be full of opinions about what is misconceived by the reader for factual information. As previously mentioned, a good source of news is one that is unbiased. So natural opinions are not a good source of news. Opinionated pieces have a tendency of not looking at all the facts in the given situation, but they may not agree with the circumstance. When the article is reported, the author may twist a story that corresponds directly with what he or she may believe is the truth on the situation. This results in the news may be seen to be true, but actually not. An example of an article that was on Yahoo News years ago saying that Miley Cyrus died. We all know that's not true. There are websites that are simply a mockery of actual current events. These may put a funny spin on current news events or even make the entire event up. For example, the website The Onion contains what appears to be real and current news stories, however they are not meant to be taken in fact, but instead in satire. They are meant to be taken lightly and usually humorous in a nature that aren't meant to be actual news reports. However, if somebody did not know that this was the case, they could end up believing what they read on the website to be real news because it is portrayed in a way that resembles real news. By being misled, people could easily be belief in the false stories as one of the misinformed about what even the topic may be. There are also websites that report fake news claims without any facts beyond the stories. This can lead to problems if most people who get their news from the internet are not getting it from reputable websites. There is a very important for everyone to stay up to date with current events, but if the facts are wrong, then it's even worse than not knowing. We live in a world that is changing every day, and in order for us as people to make informed decisions, we need to get the right information from the right sources. Social media specifically creates quite the concern. Websites such as Facebook and Twitter are the sources of false news stories. If someone posts a status on Facebook about an event, others can share that status so that their friends can see it as well. As a story gets shared, the view base grows. If Facebook is a person's only source of news, then they are more likely to be perceived in the information that one is true it is not. This was an issue during the Boston Marathon bombings. Pictures of alleged suspects were being posted so that information about who they are or where they could be gathered. However, this led to an influx in false leads. The New York Post described 4 innocent people wrongly accused of being Boston Marathon suspects. By trying to find the person who committed the crime, innocent people were being hunted and investigated. A dangerous atmosphere can easily be created if a situation in the main news source is giving out false information to the public. This shows the missing Brown student that everyone was looking for a while because he was missing. They figured it was him for a while. I'm reading that on Facebook. And also this, which actually was on the New York Post, which these two people ended up suing the New York Post for that. Unlike a more classic source of news, it seems as though internet causes more harm than good when being the main source of news. However, older forms of news have their problems too. There are often reports of a television reporter either getting the story wrong or not having the facts right. This happens with newspapers as well. Normally, the mistake will be corrected in either a reprint or in the next episode. In the meantime, however, the people who receive that information as true and are wrong and can lead to problems. For example, if a television news company reported a story involving emergency situations such as a fire or a hurricane was approaching a given area, and that the residents should evacuate to a new location, if the news reporter doesn't have the right information to report, the people who are in danger might not be able to make it to safety because they are following the wrong instructions. But in that moment, they may not further investigate the warnings. Regardless of the form it takes, a news source should always be dependable and reliable. In the words of Thomas Jefferson in 1820, an enlightened citizenry is indispensable for the proper functioning of a republic. The internet is a fantastic tool because of how easy it makes things. With advances in technology, a person can get the news anywhere from any source and can learn more about the world around you so much easier than the years past, because mostly all news is right at your fingertips in the form of computer, laptop, cell phone, or even a tablet. As long as the information is accurate and secure, the internet makes it much more convenient to learn about today's current events and news stories.